Tom Hanks once famously said of acting that there are no shortcuts, and whether you agree with that or not, there are certainly a wide variety of techniques which actors can employ to make their jobs easier, or better still, find truth in the characters they play. Acting is such a fluid discipline with a wide variety of styles that it'd be unfair to call any particular method right or wrong, even when the secret techniques totally come out of left field. And after looking into some of these strange and downright inspired techniques, we decided to make a list of the most unorthodox. I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 secret acting methods you never knew. Number 10. Nicolas Cage enters a shamanic trance to get into character. It's no secret that Nicolas Cage is one of the most eccentric actors working today, and the Oscar-winning performer has certainly employed some peculiar acting methods over the years, such as requiring hot yogurt to be poured over his toes while filming a sex scene. But on a broader level, Cage uses a technique that he refers to as nouveau shamanic, whereby he follows in the footsteps of medicine men and tribal shamans by going into a trance and acting out the issues affecting his character. In the case of 2012's Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance, this involved donning Afro-Caribbean paint, sewing ancient Egyptian artifacts into his clothing, and gathering materials such as onyx, which superstition dictates has courage-giving properties. If nothing else, it ensured that a Nicolas Cage performance is entirely distinctive, no matter how good or bad the movie might be. Though Cage has made the acting technique famous, he actually admits to having borrowed it from Brian Bates's 1987 book, The Way of the Actor, which draws extensive parallels between contemporary acting and the seers and shamans of millennia past. Number 9. Eddie Murphy copied Bruce Lee's facial expressions for his action movies. Eddie Murphy is best known for his rat-a-tat wit and also his distinctive animated facial expressions, though when Murphy made the leap from stand-up comedy to the big screen with 1982's hit buddy cop action flick 48 Hours, he wasn't confident he'd actually look convincing holding a gun. And so Murphy turned to a statuesque source of inspiration for his tough guy look, none other than Bruce Lee. Lee was noted for not only his incredible physique and athletic prowess, but also the intensity he sold through facial expressions alone, enough to make you forget about his relatively slight stature. In particular, Murphy imitated Lee's tendency to dart his eyes around to keep his opponents and the audience on their toes. In a recent interview, Murphy said of the influence, "When I take a gun out in a movie, I'm trying to do Bruce Lee faces. Bruce Lee is actually the only actor I've consciously mimicked." Number 8. Anna Faris uses a menthol tear stick to cry on command. One of the most challenging and vulnerable things for any actor is to cry on camera. For me, I just have to think about the audience having to listen to a list not voiced by me and, oh God, away I go. God, it's so sad. But there are tons of ways to elicit that eye juice. For example, Bryce Dallas Howard has trained herself to cry on command by yawning, while Amy Adams is triggered by the mere mention of sriracha. But there's a far more practical solution than any of these, as revealed by Anna Faris during an appearance on The Late Late Show with James Corden a few years ago. If all else fails, there's a quick, surefire way to make yourself cry, using a menthol-filled tear stick, which when rubbed underneath the eyes quickly causes irritation and will allow the recipient to convincingly cry. By Faris's own admission, she's not much of a crier in everyday life, so relies on the stick to give a more emotional performance, as nobody would ever notice the difference. And you know what? We totally didn't. Number 7. George Clooney wobbles his head to heighten dramatic scenes. Did you ever notice how George Clooney has a penchant for wobbling his head around whenever he's trying to get the audience's attention during an important dramatic scene? Seriously, when you notice it, you'll not be able to unsee it. You're welcome. You might not even be consciously aware that you've been seeing Clooney do it, but your brain definitely clocked it, and so the head-wobbling scenes will typically stick around in your mind longer than the ones where he's a little more mannered and restrained. Hell, it even got mentioned in an episode of Entourage once. Number 6. Hugh Jackman dehydrates 36 hours before a shirtless scene to look super ripped. Part of any convincing performance is the actor's efforts to physically resemble the character as written in the script. And as we all know, it's incredibly common for actors to undergo insane physical transformations, especially in order to play muscle-bound superheroes. If Christian Bale is the master of yo-yoing his weight for dramatic roles, Hugh Jackman is probably the king of getting absolutely jaw-droppingly ripped for tentpole movies. Jackman got in especially granite-chiseled shape for his roles in X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, X-Men Days of Future Future Past and Logan. But if you thought it was as simple as working out like a maniac and eating right, well, you're close, but there's one actually much more dangerous step to this as well. Basically, in the 36 hours before shooting begins, Jackman dehydrates himself by not drinking any water at all, to ensure that he sheds all the possible waterways and looks as vascular as possible on screen. The results are spectacular, but it's a strain on the body that really can't be encouraged. Number 5. Tom Cruise wears a thong during action scenes for maximum comfort and flexibility. Tom Cruise is pretty much as celebrated for his Daredevil stuntman antics these days as he is for being a weird Scientologist spokesperson, but there is no denying that he is the dog's bollocks and the bee's knees when it comes to the Mission Impossible series. And though Cruise's commitment to his death-defying stunts is undeniable, there's one little trick that he employs alongside the insane training he puts into scaling buildings, jumping out of planes, and flying helicopters. Apparently, Cruise has the wardrobe department for his films supply him with up to 50 thongs to wear during shooting, after expressing discomfort while shooting action scenes in regular underwear and consequently praising thongs for their comfort and flexibility. Listen, I had to know the fact, and now you do as well. Number 4. John Barrymore hid cue cards around the set to act while drunk. John Barrymore is a legendary actor across the stage and screen, noted for his contributions to both the silent film era and the advent of the talkies, especially his 1930s films Grand Hotel, 20th Century, and Midnight. In addition to his acting talents, Barrymore was also famously hobbled by alcohol addiction, and by the 1930s it had begun to impact his screen work. But Barrymore had a novel solution. While filming William Wyler's 1933 film Counselor at Law, Barrymore was so pickled that he couldn't remember any of his lines, resulting in 25 flubbed takes and the actor resorting to having cue cards strategically placed around the set for him to read from. Despite the obvious potential for this to impact his performance, Barrymore's work on the film was widely praised, with legendary film critic Paula Cale even calling it one of the few screen roles that reveal his true measure as an actor. Number 3. Adrien Brody went emotionally method for The Pianist. Method acting is hardly a secret acting technique, be it attaining a certain weight, keeping an accent, or asking that the cast and crew refer to them by their character's name during shooting. Or if you're Daniel Day-Lewis, you basically do all of these things. Seriously, this guy goes off the range sometimes. But Adrien Brody took method acting in a slightly different direction when preparing to play his role in Roman Polanski's The Pianist. Brody shed 30 pounds of weight to more convincingly resemble his impoverished character, though went the extra mile of doing a number of things to place himself in the precise emotional headspace his character would have been in during his real-life events. Brody sold almost all of his possessions, including his phone, car, and apartment, broke up with his girlfriend, and shut himself away from the world, all in the hope of giving him an emotionally authentic performance. In the actor's own words, "I did all of these things to encourage loneliness and to encourage loss. It taught me to appreciate everything and everyone that's important to me in my life." Well, the Oscar probably didn't hurt either. Number 2. Robert Downey Jr. is fed lines through an earpiece to save time. Robert Downey Jr. is a fantastic actor without question, though you might be surprised by a major acting shortcut that he takes in order to give himself more downtime during a movie shoot. During his recent appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast, the Avengers star admitted that he started using an earwig during production of Guy Ritchie's first Sherlock Holmes movie. Because the script was being rewritten each day, he requested an earpiece to have new lines fed to him instead of learning lines which were then discarded. More importantly, this also allowed him to spend more time with his family after a day's shoot. Downey Jr. has reportedly used an earpiece on every major movie he starred in since, including the Avengers films, with the Russo brothers explaining that the writers would come up with a series of alternate lines the weekend before shooting for Downey Jr. to rattle through with the aid of his earpiece. However, Downey Jr. did add that he feels that he's taken this technique about as far as he can, and he'll probably seek out a new method or create a new version of the old method, whatever exactly that means. At number 1, Heath Ledger hid himself in a hotel room for 6 weeks to become the Joker. There is a ton of hyperbole online about how the late, great Heath Ledger went too method while preparing to play the Joker in The Dark Knight, and that the Oscar-winning role killed him. And while that's clearly tabloid fuel hooey, Ledger did employ some specific acting techniques to get into character, but they're not really method. They're better described as the actor immersing himself in his own private character workshop. In the 6 weeks before the shooting started, Ledger reportedly secluded himself in a London hotel room to perfect the Clown Prince of Crime time's voice, specifically his laugh, while also writing a diary of his thoughts, feelings, and inspirations. It is, of course, deeply tragic that Ledger's hectic work schedule made it difficult for him to sleep and may have contributed to his accidental overdose, though it's also clear that his intense commitment to the part resulted in one of the most iconic and unforgettable performances in the history of blockbuster filmmaking. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 acting methods you never knew. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. But before you go and hopefully go out and absolutely smash your day, I hope that you are well and treating yourself as fairly as you can, both mentally and physically. It's still the start of the year in January when I'm recording this, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the year coming ahead. So I just want to make sure that you are giving yourself time and space to take a break every now and again, ask for help if you need it, and remember, you are not alone. All right, big love from me to you. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. And if you'd like to do something a bit different, then why not check out my board game channel? It's called Live and Let's Dice. Play games like Warhammer over there at the moment. It's a bit of a laugh, and it'll be lovely to see you over there. And as always, you have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.